When we talk about major world religions, it's pretty staggering to think about the scale. Islam is the second largest in the world. Its history stretches back over 14 centuries, and its influence can be seen in cultures all over the globe. So understanding its core ideas as well, it's pretty important.
Hey, welcome. If you're cramming for an exam or you just want a really clear, straightforward overview of Islam, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the key beliefs, the main practices, and the history in a way that's actually easy to remember. So let's just dive right in.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute foundational beliefs. Then we'll get into the essential duties, the practices. After that, a quick look at the history. Then we'll unpack that major split within the faith, and finally, we'll see how Islam impacts the world today.
Okay, first stop, the core of faith. To really get a handle on Islam, you have to start with its single most central idea.
This right here, this is the single most important concept in all of Islam, Tawhid. It's this absolute, unshakable belief in the oneness of God, or Allah. And it's not just monotheism, it's more intense than that. It's the idea that God is totally unique, with no partners, no equals, no kids. So unlike some other faiths that might have a trinity or different forms of a deity, Tawhid is all about this radical, pure unity. Seriously, everything else we're going to talk about flows directly from this one powerful idea.
So building on that core belief in one God, Muslims believe the Quran is the literal word of God as it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. They also believe in a whole line of prophets, many you'll definitely recognize, people like Abraham, Moses, and even Jesus. But for Muslims, Muhammad is the final prophet, the seal of the prophets. The faith also has a really strong belief in an afterlife, with heaven and hell and this idea of predestination, the belief that God has a master plan for every single thing that happens.
So, you've got the beliefs, right? But how do those beliefs actually translate into, daily life and action? Well, that brings us right to our next section. The pillars of practice. Think of these as the 5 essential duties that really structure a Muslim's life. And here they are, the famous 5 pillars. It all starts with the Shahada, which is the declaration of faith. Then you have Salah, the ritual prayer that's performed 5 times every day, facing towards Mecca. Zakat is the pillar of charity. It's a required donation to help out those in need. Psalm, that's the fast from sunrise to sunset during the holy month of Ramadan. And finally, there's the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca that every Muslim who is physically and financially able is expected to make at least once in their lifetime.
Okay, so we've covered the beliefs and the practices, but where did this all even come from? Let's take a quick look at the journey from a single prophet to a massive, world-spanning empire.
Man, this timeline just shows how incredibly fast everything happened. So, the Prophet Muhammad was born around 570 CE. The real turning point, though, is 622 CE, the Hijra. That's when he and his followers moved from Mecca to Medina. It's such a huge deal that it marks year 1 on the Islamic calendar. Then, just 10 years later, the Prophet dies, and from there, the faith just explodes. The Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates go on to create this enormous empire that was famous for its incredible advances in science and culture.
But, that unity right after the Prophet's death, it didn't last. A really fundamental disagreement cropped up, and it led to the single most significant and long-lasting division in the faith, the Sunni-Shia divide. And just to give you a sense of the scale of that split, here's what it looks like today. The vast majority of Muslims around the world, somewhere between 85 and 90%, are Sunni. That leaves about 10 to 15% who are Shia.
So the obvious question is, what on earth caused such a major split? Well, it all boils down to one critical question that came up literally the moment the Prophet Muhammad died.
And the whole thing comes down to this: who should lead the Muslim community? The group that would become the Sunnis believed the leader, or the caliph, should be chosen by the community, based on merit. They supported the first 4 caliphs as the rightful successors. But the other group, which became the Shia, believed leadership was a divine right that had to stay within the Prophet's family, starting with his son-in-law Ali. What started as a political disagreement just snowballed over the centuries, developing into its own distinct traditions, different ways of interpreting theology, and even different legal schools.
Okay, for our final section, let's zoom out and look at Islam's wider impact on the world, from its incredible historical achievements to its role in our world today.
For hundreds of years, the Islamic world was the absolute center of science and culture on the planet. This period, what we call the Islamic Golden Age, was just a breathtaking explosion of genius. While a lot of Europe was kind of in the Dark Ages, scholars in cities like Baghdad and Cairo were making huge leaps in medicine and optics. They were mapping the stars, and they basically invented a whole new field of math,
Algebra. The word itself comes from the Arabic al-jabr, and this amazing intellectual energy was matched by incredible art, producing the stunning architecture and beautiful geometric patterns you see in places like this.
And it is so important to realize that this is not just ancient history. That 1,400-year-old Sunni-Shia divide is still an incredibly powerful force today. It shapes political alliances, it fuels tensions, and it directly influences modern conflicts in countries all across the Middle East, like Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon.
So we're left with this huge question to think about. It started with a simple idea of oneness, grew into a set of global practices, created a massive empire, and then split into a lasting division. How does this incredibly complex 1,400-year-old story continue to shape not just the lives of almost 2 billion people, but the very fabric of the world we all live in today?